What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about sniper rifles and what I think is, without question, the best sniper rifle in the game right now and why. Obviously, you already know what it is from the thumbnail, but I'll give you the reasons why in the video. As always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping a sub, comment, like, helps us grow, helps us keep the website up, keep it live, keep it up to date. I appreciate you guys as always, but let's jump into it and talk about the ZRG. Alright, so I've created one of my sniper comparison charts so we can talk about why I think the ZRG is the best. I'll show you the builds for each one of these real fast before we go into the chart. So SPR with Norma, HDR, ZRG, Kar98, and Kar98, one with ADS stock and one with aiming stability stock. So the builds, we'll just do the SPR first. So it's the standard SPR build. There's really not a whole lot you can do besides this to make the SPR good. So monolithic, longest barrel, tack laser, variable zoom, and then Norma rounds. Normal rounds give the best bullet velocity. That's why you want to use them. Least bullet drop as well. And then for the HDR, the build that I used is the standard build that most of the top players use. So that is monolithic, longest barrel, tack laser, variable zoom, and the ADS stock. So the very first stock. So this is the build for the HDR. These are pretty much the best builds for all these guns. And then the ZRG. ZRG, this is an old build, so I take bipod off now and either use the 3x or the 4x. They have very similar ADS times within about 10 milliseconds. So either one of those is a great choice. They're both no glint. So something I want to quickly mention. So in my SMG video, I mentioned that, I'm not sure if that's going to go live before this or not, so you might not know this, but for ARs and SMGs, airborne elastic wrap gives you the best ADS times. But for snipers, serpent wrap gives you the best ADS times. So you still want to use serpent wrap on the ZRG for sure. But this is the ZRG build. And then let's go to the Kar98. So the two Kar98 builds, there's two common builds for the Kar98. The most common is probably the aim down sight speed stock. So this is the best ADS time. I've talked about this a ton of times, why I like it so much. But I actually use the precision comb, which makes ADS times quite a bit worse, but makes your aiming stability really good, and you're still ADSing faster than every other sniper except other Kar98s. So this is the other build. These are the two builds that are on the chart. So we'll jump back to the chart now, and I'll show you why I think the ZRG is the best. All right, so I just recently did a best aggressive snipers video. It was probably like a week and a half ago. And the Kar98 was pretty much indisputably the best, these two builds. So that's the reason why I included that one. It's not really the same type of sniper as the SPR, the HDR, the ZRG. It's a little bit, it's obviously much more aggressive, better ADS times, lower bullet velocity, but I wanted to include it just because I know people ask why I didn't. People probably ask why I didn't include a lot of things, but the reason why I didn't include anything else is because these are pretty much the top guns, the top sniper rifles in Warzone right now, for various reasons. But we'll start with the bullet velocity. So SBR has 1175, HDR is about 1215, and ZRG is massive now at 1300. So that's quite a bit faster than the HDR now, which means it has the least bullet drop, the fastest bullet travel time, which means it's easier to hit moving targets at range. It's easier to predict for drop and things like that. Then the Kar98, obviously, because it's a more aggressive sniper, it's not going to have as high a bullet velocity. So it's all the way down at like 1033 with those builds that I showed. Bullet drop in this case is pretty proportional to the bullet velocity. There's a few guns that's not true for. The M82 and the Rytec specifically have very, very little drop, even though they have very low bullet velocity. But these ones are all relatively proportional, so that's why the bullet velocity and the bullet drop rankings are about the same. So SPR with Norma rounds and HDR are both very similar. HDR has a little bit less, but they're very similar. ZRG has the least bullet drop. Kar98 is going to have the most bullet drop by quite a bit, just because it's so much slower. And then ADS time, because we can now put the 3x axial and the 4x Royal and Cross that don't have glint on the ZRG, that helps the ADS times even more with that serpent wrap. So when the ZRG first came out, it was bugged and you couldn't hold your breath, those two optics, so we couldn't really use them. I thought it was probably on purpose actually, but they've since patched it, so it must have been a mistake. And now you can hold your breath with the axial 3x or the Royal and Cross 4x. So that brings those ADS times down by about 50-60 milliseconds on top of the serpent wrap. That gives us this insane 492 millisecond ADS time with that build I showed. So serpent wrap, longest barrel, agency suppressor, axial 3x. or the 4X. The 4X is like 505 milliseconds of ADS time ish, so it's a little bit slower, but still really, really fast. And then 5-round mag, and it's faster ADS time than the SPR with normal rounds. It's way faster ADS time than the HDR, and you get this crazy bullet velocity and the least bullet drop. So these three things combined basically are what make me think the ZRG is just the best sniper in the game right now for like all-round usage. Long range, because of that bullet velocity, it's awesome. You're going to want to put the 4X Royal and Cross on there if you do the long range. It's still not going to be nearly as much zoom as the HDR, which is one of the things that holds it back. But I think the bullet velocity and the bullet drop is worth it to make that sacrifice for zoom. And then, of course, Car 98 with the ADS stock is going to be way faster than everything else. So it's down at 356 milliseconds. And then with the stability stock, it's still faster than everything else at 397. So again, it's an aggressive sniper. I just put it on here because it's the best aggressive sniper and I wanted to compare to it. Aim sway, all of these are pretty similar. These first four, Norma, HDR, ZRG. The ZRG actually has really good aim sway for a Cold War sniper compared to the LW3, for example. And the LW3 is around the same bullet velocity as the HDR now after the recon barrel changes, or the combat recon barrel changes. So I think the HDR is better than the LW3 in all cases except when you don't want glint. And if you're going to use the LW3 with no glint, there's literally no reason not to just use the ZRG because it has better aim sway, better bullet velocity, better bullet drop, better ADS time, still has no glint, and it'll have the same zoom because you're using the no glint optics. So yeah, I mean, the sway is not great on these, but it's not bad. And like I said, the ZRG is about the same as HDR and SPR and Car 98 with the ADS stock. Maybe even a little bit better than the Car 98 with the ADS stock. And then glint, obviously all the Modern Warfare guns have glint, so that's bad. And then the ZRG with the Axial 3X or the Royal and Cross 4X will not have glint, which is awesome. And then zoom, the SBR with Norma has the least zoom. It's about the same as the ZRG with like the 4X. If you put the variable zoom on the variable zoom on the SPR, variable zoom on the Car 98, and the 4X on the ZRG, those are all very similar in maximum zoom. But the HDR is going to have the most zoom by far with its variable zoom optic. So something to keep in mind. I know for recon players, they really like having high zoom. So in a lot of cases, they might still want to use the HDR. But you could always swap to one of the more zoom optics on the ZRG, but none of them are very good. But they do have more zoom, so you could do that. But I personally would just stick with probably the 4X with the precision reticle. So yeah, that's pretty much why I think it's the best sniper in the game right now. For all-round usage, it's really good up close because it has good ADS times. It's not a Car 98, but it's not like crazy worse than a Car 98. It's 100 milliseconds worse than the Car 98 build that I usually used, so that's not that bad. And to get this insane 1300 meters per second bullet velocity and like no bullet drop and no glint, it's just ridiculously good right now. I think I've had a blast using it. It's probably my favorite loadout right now is the ZRG with an AR, support AR. So I'll talk about what I use to support it here in a second, but I have a blast with the ZRG. It is just so fun. All right, so this is the ZRG that I'm obsessed with. I've shown it already once, but I swap back and forth between the 4X and the 3X. If I use the 4X, obviously I have to use this precision reticle. It has a nice clean dot in the center. And I actually also use that on the 3X. The trade-off is you get slightly worse, very, very small amount worse ADS times with the Royal and Cross 4X, but you get a bunch more zoom. But you also get a worse sight picture. The bezels of the optic are much larger. I don't know. I probably usually use the 4X, but the 3X is a great option for more aggressive snipers. And then to pair with this, I use probably my favorite thing to use is the Cold War AK. I've been having so much fun with this thing. I use the KGB skeletal stock, mill stop, Spetsnaz grip, 45 round mag, and the GRU suppressor. This thing feels awesome to me. It has great TTKs, and it feels really easy to control after the change to the recoil in the recent patches. So this is my personal favorite. The XM4 is fantastic as well. The FARA is still really good to go with the sniper, and the FFAR is still really good as well. But this is my personal favorite to use with a sniper. And you could, if you wanted to have more range, you could swap out the stock for either the takedown barrel or the Liberator. They're both good choices. Liberator is going to make it easier for you to hit targets at range because the bullet velocity is so high. takedown is going to extend that damage range out a little bit. So your your first damage drop off extends out a little more. You could also use Task Force. That gives you both bullet velocity, damage range, and strafe speed. So this would be more for an up close option for this AK, just because it increases that recoil by quite a bit. So I personally don't really use the last barrel, the Spetsnaz RPK barrel, which is the same as the Task Force barrel for the other guns. Just because I don't want that extra recoil with my sniper, but I really like this build. Really fun gun to use. Alright guys, well I think that pretty much explains why I think this gun is pretty much the king of snipers right now, besides the Kar98. The Kar98's better at very aggressive sniping, obviously. There's just so many things going for the ZRG right now that I think it's really hard to use an HDR or an SPR over it. And I have an absolute blast using this gun, so just wanted to share that with you. Hope it helps out. As always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping that sub, like, comment. Really helps us out, helps us grow, helps the algorithm show us to more people, and keep the website live, and just keep doing this for future patches and games. So as always, I appreciate you guys always, and I hope you have a good day, and I will see you in the next video.